So these are a bunch of part numbers, all for the same part, which you might be looking up because you're on this video right now. Or if you're really lucky, you're watching this video before you need this part. This is a stud, and I am not. It is roughly about a 7.8 centimeter or 78 millimeter long fastener with a nut that goes on top and an E8 Torx driver. This goes into something near the bottom of your block and holds your alternator in from the bottom, while another approximately 50 millimeter fastener kind of not so much holds but stabilizes the top of the alternator using the water pump as a bracket, the aluminum water pump specifically as a bracket, the thing that cools your motor down. Yeah, that. Here is the part number for a 75 millimeter bolt that can do this thing's job along with a lock washer, right? Here is one for a 50 millimeter bolt that can do the top bolt's job, for which I don't know or care about the part number that or that thing's not. So the reason I'm making this video is to warn you about a problem that happened to me, which is that even though I was fairly specific about torque and fairly clean when I did my job and used thread locker, somehow this bolt came out with the nut still on it. The whole stud came out, and that left this thing floating around enough to actually shear and break off this upper mount point from the water pump that is like 14 months old, that I was pretty much going to call lifetime. So that's about where that broke on there. On the car, I'll show you in a sec. But here's what I need you to do. Get a 14 millimeter crescent wrench, okay? And just go under your car, don't care if you have the cover on, get in there and be absolutely sure that the bottom bolt of your alternator is all the way tight. And you can reach behind here and do some braille, and you can feel and make sure there are threads, just a little bit of threads sticking out on the back of that receiver that has the threads that holds the bottom of that thing on. And while you're at it, maybe even tighten the 14 millimeter that's up top here that is right there, because you don't want that floating around. Now, the way this went down was my kid calls me while I'm doing my capstone homework and says, "Hey Dad, I can't turn the wheel." And I said, "Well, it sounds like the power steering's out." So I brought every tool I had to come find the alternator sitting crooked. And there's this massive crack right there where I've dropped that screwdriver. You see that? This is not a thing I like. So the belt was off, the alternator was loose. You have a very high power battery line right there that is awfully close to conductive things with enough force that could create a real nice barbecue. So just please check your fastener, make sure you're tight down there. These cars are getting old, things are wiggling, oil's making stuff get good at moving. And now I have a hobbled floating thing that needs either aluminum welded or a miracle bracket or the water pump replaced on a motor I just did 14 months ago. And I'm frustrated, and I'm telling you guys to just check your six. Just take one freaking second, please guys. Leave a comment, let me know whether you would just drive around letting the tensioner pull this whole thing into place for an indefinite period of time, or if you're worried about all the things I'm worried about and what you are. Little food of thought for you while we're here. Factory radiator, one of the aluminum bigger guys. You cannot get a tool in here to do your belt. You have to do it with like some MacGyver crap. You can barely clear this. You can't use a normal socket to do it. And from the bottom, you can't actually put a deep socket 14 to check that alternator bolt. But the tool I do like to use is this Craftsman here at Lowe's, dirt cheap. Comes with a little adapter that'll do a different size and a different angle. But yeah, here's that part number that can go F itself, and I can go F myself and my whole day and my homework and everything, because probably didn't torque it enough, and time and oil. 14 months of vibration and oil. please let me know what you think about. My fear, honestly, is that this bottom thing that is much, much thicker than this bullcrap still isn't strong enough to handle this job on its own, and that it will snap. And then when it does, then this is game over. So, you know, I need to find a good aluminum welder, come up with a bracket, or if it comes down to this again, I'm just going to swap out the whole freaking motor and deal with this later. It's like the same cost to me at the end of the day, pretty much labor-wise, just have somebody swap the thing. I don't have an extra part that I wanted anyway. So, yeah, yeah, yay.